wanted to share today's interview with you. My friend Chris Stone, he's such a joy to be with, in person or virtually, like we are today talking. But he has a really interesting background and expertise just in video podcasting and how all of those different mediums play into marketing. So I'm really excited to have him come share with us today. So Chris, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to hopefully serving your audience and helping solve some of their problems today.
Yeah. Well, why don't you give people a little bit of background about how you are, supporting people as far as your client load goes in the marketing space, what you're bringing to the table for them, but then also just how you personally are leveraging some of these tools with some of your own shows and some of the own content that you're creating, because you are doing some really interesting things.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Chris Stone, and you could find me at chrisstone.contact, where you can connect with me any way you want. I mean, if you want to check out my Pinterest, you can do that there. But it's just a portal to all my stuff.
Yeah.
And what I do is I work with motivated entrepreneurs to develop a show, because what I found out, Valerie, is like lots of people don't want to know how you hook up the RTMP to the bit, to the binary, to the flip, to the flop, and all of that stuff. They just want a show. And that's what I do for them. I originally started out as predominantly a podcast editor with predominantly audio, because I do come from the music business with Sony, where I worked for 28 years. And so audio was a huge component of what I did. But what I found out as I was pulling this thing apart and developing this business that is Cast Ahead is that there are other things that people need. There are other pain points. It isn't just about editing predominantly audio. There were things like video and social media and live remote production and things
Yeah.
like that that I could absolutely do, that I had been doing for years, that I really needed to encompass in a done for you service, which is
Yeah.
what I do for sales trainers. I do for people that are in the furniture and mattress industry, people that are just wanting to have a mission to, talk about what success looks like and
Yeah.
have a voice. And I felt like this was a way for me to not only do what I want to do, which is to, inspire other people, but I can work with other people that are doing the same and create almost a legacy with the content, because you and I are going to be 6 feet underground, and depending on what you believe in, coming back as a squirrel or living on some other plane or whatever after you are dead. This content, like the content that we're doing today, Valerie, lives
Right.
forever, or unless Elon Musk decides he wants to take it down at some point. But it's going to live. It's going to live forever, and so I treat it with an incredible amount of importance, because I feel like this is something I can leave behind when
Mm,
I'm not here on this earth.
yeah. Wow. Yeah. We'll see what Musk does here. But
I had to bring him up, I guess. I don't know.
okay, so
Uh,
now that you brought him up, how are you approaching Twitter these days?
well, it's sort of like what I treat every one of these platforms with. I mean, listen, if we're going to get into the leanings of every person that's involved with every one of these platforms, we probably wouldn't be on any of them.
Mhm.
And so I just look at it as like, how is this going to work for me? And like I spoke about, how is it going to work for the clients that I work with? And
Yeah.
so if someone is diametrically opposed to something and decides that they don't want to do that, that's not anything I could do. I can't do anything about that. So
Right.
but if I believe that, for me, that's a platform that I use, and it has I've gotten business from that platform, and I can, the thing that I do like about Twitter is that it's there for you when you want it, and you can really control things with it and be able to say, you know what, I want to create lists. I want to jump on. I want to be able to do what I need to do, shout out what I need to shout out, and then get out.
Yeah.
And then you could also, utilize it when you want to utilize it. So I just, I'm one of those people that are just like, listen, there's a lot of stuff going on that I have no control over. And if I want to leave that platform because of whatever, I can do that.
Yeah.
but at this point, I just don't really have a reason to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Like I don't, I don't really have any interest in leaving Twitter necessarily. And, being in the social media space, I have to stay there. I have to be able to see what's going on
Mm.
there, but as
Mhm.
far as an active user, I'm kind of holding my breath right now. Just
Mm.
like, okay, let's just see how this is all going to shake out, um, because eh, Musk has proven to do some pretty innovative things with other industries and other businesses. I'm like, who's to say he's not going to do the same with Twitter? Where there were clearly some problems before. Um, there's reasons people didn't like the platform. So I'm curious to see what
Mhm.
he's going to do. So I'm kind of just holding my breath. I'm like, all right, let's just see well, how's this going to shake out? So
Yeah, it's cautious, but I wouldn't say cautious optimism. It's just sort of like, well, he's applied this kind of thing to other technologies and other
mhm,
industries. Let's see what he's going to do there. He certainly is making
making waves.
make yes, waves is one way. Tidal waves would be what a lot of other people would
Yeah.
qualify it as.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. There's a few industries that really have loved Twitter, and then there's a few that there's a lot that just feel like it's this giant black hole, you know.
Hmm.
Excuse me. And as other platforms become harder and harder to engage on, Facebook being one of them,
Hmm.
businesses are always looking for like, what's the next place where I could really be able to make a splash, you know?
Hmm.
And I'll be curious to see if Twitter ends up being one of those places, with the way they change things or the way they innovate. So yeah, as a marketer, I'm like, I'm just gonna watch this. Not gonna do anything drastic here, but certainly
Yeah.
the rest of the world has definitely got opinions, that's for sure. So
Yeah, and like it's lasted this long, and I know for many years, especially early on, people were like, "What is this?" Right?
yeah,
How do I even do this? And like this just seems like, well, that kind of sounds like what people have been saying the last year or so about TikTok.
I was just gonna
And so,
say, yeah.
it's like, there are people that are figuring this stuff out, and it may not be for you, and
Hmm.
it's probably not for me on some, but if we don't figure it out, how we can utilize it, I feel like it's this whole thing as marketers, right? Shiny object, and but you don't have to do all the things. I think that's the thing that I've learned about, especially in working with Jim Fuse, who I know has been on your show as well, is that he's all in on Twitter and has been all in on Twitter, and
Hmm.
he can be considered a quote unquote expert, and he's learned from Madeline Sklar, and so I was able to kind of say I was one of those people that didn't really. I was like, well, I would get on it and get sports news, or if I
Right.
heard something was happening, I would jump on and try to get that information. It seemed like the way to kind of grab stuff, but like going and just kind of spending time there just felt like a waste of time, and it wasn't for me just because there was just so much stuff going on. And
Yeah.
he showed me how to utilize it, how to use it as a tool to work for you. And so I was like, okay, that's cool. And now I don't have to think like I have to spend hours on it a day. I don't. I spend
Yeah.
maybe 10 minutes on Twitter a day.
Yeah.
And so that works for me. I can apply learnings that I need, take the things that I need to do with it, and run. And I think that's, as marketers, you need to know enough to be dangerous on some things, but I think you need to be an expert on something. You can't be an expert on everything.
No. Yeah. Yeah. You have to have your space. And I think it's one of the things too that, people's personality also
Mm.
can just make some decisions there. Like some people just don't like Twitter or they don't like TikTok or, in their personality, they lean towards a certain platform and that's really where they shine a lot better. That's okay.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to say, here's where I'm focusing my attention. Here's what's going to work for me, or here's what's working for my clients. This is where they lean towards, so I'm going to lean into that. So yeah, I'm curious, what you're seeing just across the board with how, because people for years, I mean, years upon years have been saying video, video, video. Like, if you're not doing video, you're missing out. We're still saying that, but I think people are already they've already missed some of the boats. But I'm curious, like, what you're seeing as far as like interest and adoption of people finally embracing video, or do you feel like people are still pretty hesitant to embrace video and audio and the concept of having a show? Or, what are you seeing over the last kind of few years?
I think there still is absolutely fear of video, and I think just like there are some platforms that aren't for everyone,
Mhm.
whether it's social media or whatever. I think video may not be for everyone, and I think what podcasting has done is it's amplified how important audio is and how important audio is to your video. Because one of the things that one of the big reasons why I started this business is because what I realized is there was lots of content that was out there that was great. It was like, I can't believe this person said something that impacted me. But
Mm.
the audio was terrible. Like it just
Mhm.
sounded like it was just, it didn't matter that the camera had a shot of the ceiling fan and I could count their nose hairs, and
Yeah.
that didn't matter as much as what I was listening to.
Yeah.
And so I think if people have a fear of video, and when they do watch videos and they see, mirrorless cameras and lights and all that, and then they immediately go, "Ugh, I don't even know what goes into all of that, and
Yeah.
I in the imposter syndrome, and how would I ever be able to do this? Who's gonna?" And the what they just need to do is get in a tight, small, dead room with fluffy stuff around you and get the microphone close to your mouth. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden, you sound really good. And what you have to say is actually more important than how you look. And so that's where I feel like is now where we're headed. I mean, people are watching these videos, these 2 and 3 hour long interviews on
Mhm.
YouTube that are basically one camera set up, and there's a table, and every once in a while you may see a camera switch or whatever, and you
Mhm.
see that person and they're talking, but there's not pattern interrupts going on. There is not, all kinds of treatments. I'm sure there's decent lighting and there's probably some money going on, but generally what they're saying is the most important part. And here we are, and we're on an audio podcast right now,
Mhm.
right? I think it's a fantastic, intimate piece of content that is different. It's People are listening to this right now, Valerie. They're on their commute to work. They are walking their dogs. They are out for a run.
Mhm.
Shout out to my runners who are listening to this right now. And so that is much more intimate. They're leaning into this, like, oh, this is a show about video. This is this. He might talk about Amazon. I want to learn about that. I know this.
Mhm.
So they're leaning into it a little bit more. I think what's happening on video a lot of times is people are firing out cameras and just chatting about themselves.
Yeah.
And if you treat things with a higher level of importance and say, hey, this is what I want to achieve today. These are the people that I want to talk to, because I'm going to put it out there, and it may not get 5 downloads today, but eventually it may touch somebody's life and they may be impacted by what I said, because that's going to
Yeah.
last. It's a different format. And so I know that sort of answers your question, but that's really what I'm seeing is, everyone using the word podcasting and now video podcasting. Well, it still is important how you sound and what you're
Mhm.
saying before people see, the ring lights and all of the stuff that goes into making a really good video. It's about how you sound.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, I mean, I'll be out doing yard work, painting, painting the wall. I like to listen to podcasts when I'm doing that kind of stuff, where it's like it's kind of mindless work and I can free my mind to listen to a podcast. And having somebody's voice, like, literally in my ear, on my, AirPod or whatever, is so powerful, and you can learn a lot that you like is completely intangible just from the inflection of their voice, their things that they find funny or not. Like there's a lot that you can gather around. Do I like working with this person or not? Do I
Mm,
trust this person or not? There's a lot that you just can't really put into words that your website could never communicate. Your
yes.
brochures or whatever you're putting out there could never communicate as effectively as just somebody hearing your voice, what you get excited about, what you care about, all of that. It's really powerful, and it's as a content creator and encouraging my clients to create strategic content. It's really hard for me sometimes when I'm like, you guys would do so well with a podcast or with a video show. Like you guys would kill it. This would be so amazing for people to understand about who you are and to represent you well. And they're just scared to get on camera, or
Mm,
they're not willing to lean into it because it's just too different for them. So
yeah.
I'm curious, like, do you get that from people a lot, or is it usually people are already sold on the idea before they come seeking someone like you out?
It's both.
Is
I
it?
think I I have I have a few clients where I sought them out and said, this, like you're talking about, this, you need to do a show here. And my line is, here's my secret. Here's a secret to marketers. If you're looking for someone that you want to as your client, and in my case, I wanted someone as a podcast client. I I was listening to this person, teach a class, and I was there attending it, and I'm I'm like, oh my god, this he would be great as a podcaster. So I'm like, let me just see if he has got a podcast. Of
Yeah.
course, you open up the podcast player. There was no podcast. Did a little research, and then after it was over, I went up to him and I said, that was really great. That was great. What's the name of your podcast? Of course, I knew that there was no podcast, right?
Yeah.
But that creates that urgency back to them. They're like, I don't have a podcast. And he's a sales trainer, so he knew, right? He knew,
Yeah.
like, but he also said, that was very clever of you. He's just, tell me about your podcast business, right? And so it became that thing. Okay, the reason why I asked is I knew you did that or whatever. So I think back to your original question is that people have a fear of being on camera. I think everyone did or
Yeah.
does. I did.
Yeah.
And
Oh, for sure.
so, and I think people need to hear that, or go watch that video of Pat Flynn when he talked about his first podcast and plays it. And it's super cringy, but
Yeah.
obviously he's one of the top podcasters there is out there. And what I found when I did it is I liked it. I liked it a lot. It was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
And of course now I go back and I'll listen to these old podcasts and I'll be like, ooh, and then I look at that and say, okay, look, this is how far it's come, right?
Right.
And these are reps. These are, because your second podcast is going to be better than your first. Your
Right.
third podcast is going to be better than your second. And then you just start to develop the reps. You start having fun. You start, like, you and I are having a conversation right here. The most underrated component of a podcast is the ability to network with people. I have
Right.
a client and their entire show is, I want business from this company, so I'm going to ask this company to be on my podcast.
Right.
That's how they're doing it. They're getting that company's getting value out of it. They're getting the content
Mhm.
afterwards. They're being able to use it. But now you're connecting with that person. Doesn't always work. You don't always get them, but it's just another way to do it. And outreach is to create a show and have those people on your show,
Yeah.
and then you're connecting. Then you're able to do, potential business together. Valerie, I used to think when people, there's a thing called pod fade, right? You do
Mhm.
six or seven episodes and then you're done. You don't see the downloads, you don't see the immediate satisfaction that you hope you would get.
Right.
The likes, the downloads, all of the companies calling to sponsor your show or whatever, people do when they think that, once they get a podcast, that they're immediately going to be launched into Joe Rogan superstardom. And so they quit, and it's called pod fade. And I had a number of clients that I was working with, and I was their coach too. I was like, hey, and they were like, I can't do this. And, this is really a struggle for me. And they were missing appointments, and it was just like, and I finally was just like, hey, listen, you don't like to do this. Don't do it,
Right.
because no one wants to hear you. No one wants, people can listen right now on your podcast, Valerie, and they know you're into it.
Right.
Immediately they know, they can hear, like you said, it's intimate. You're in the center of their head, right?
Yeah.
They know, they can hear you smiling. They can hear you start to light up and start talking about something you're super passionate about, whether it's Twitter or working with people or helping them be successful or whatever that is. That's what inspires us. That's what
Right.
inspires my voice inflection. I love doing this. But when I'm working with someone and I can tell they don't love doing it, no one wants to hear someone who doesn't love what they're doing.
Yeah. You can tell.
Yes.
And especially today's generation, like today's younger generations, millennials and younger, it's like, yeah, honestly, anyone under a baby boomer, it's like they're pretty savvy. They can sniff out when you're faking something,
Yeah.
you know. Just the generations that have been so heavy with tech and social media. It's like, yeah, you can, in pre-internet days, you could get away with saying certain things on flyers or brochures or
Hmm.
whatever print materials, and people would just kind of trust, you know.
Yeah.
But in today's world, people are savvy consumers.
Yes.
They almost want that cringy podcast episode, like you're saying, because it feels real, you know.
Vulnerability is huge.
Um,
Absolutely.
and I think
Vulnerability
that's
is
one of the
massive.
things like for me with video, I encourage people, like, there's a time and a place for the really nicely produced, video about your company that feels almost like a commercial that's very well scripted and blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
There's a time and a place for those types of videos. There's also a time and a place for like pulling out your iPhone and putting a, Instagram reel up
Yes.
of you standing on the street. Maybe it's not the perfect video. Maybe you're not completely looking at the camera all the time. Maybe somebody runs in the background. But it's real.
Yes.
There's a time and a place for both. But today's consumers, they like to see that there's somebody real there. It's okay if, you know, you have a zit on your face or whatever. It's like, well, I'm still showing up,
There's something in my teeth right now.
the
Yeah.
broccoli left over from lunch.
It's true. It's true. And people resonate with it, with that. I mean, the analogy here is, Jim and I do a show called Dealcasters on Amazon. And we're a couple of 50-plus-year-old knuckleheads who do remote production and are nerdy about some tech stuff. And so we started to do a show on Amazon. And what Amazon realized when they first launched Amazon Live and the live platform in 2017 is that, okay, we're going to do this on Prime Day. We're going to do this on these key shopping days. And then we're going to do these events. And we're going to hire and pay high-level, quote unquote, influencers. And they're going to get on and do shopping, live selling.
Right.
And it was a massive failure, because people realized Jennifer Lopez talking about Maybelline makeup and putting it on and doing these things with this glorious setup and just amazing. She's getting paid money to do that.
Right.
She's getting paid money
People
by
know
the
that.
brands and people understand that.
Yeah.
And so it was a massive failure. And so in 2020, 2020, they opened up this thing and said, hey, if you got a couple thousand followers and subscribers and you know enough to be dangerous and you look like us, this is for you. And lo and behold, that's what hypercharged this thing, is because people would rather go, hey, I'm here on this platform, I'm ready to buy this pair of shoes. And if they see someone that looks like them,
Yeah.
that is trying them on and talking about them, and then you have the ability to ask them, hey, does it work well with that particular outfit, or whatever. This is a totally hypothetical example. Obviously,
Right.
I'm not a fashion person on Amazon, but
No,
you're actually engaging with someone and you're actually solving a problem they had. And so this is when the light bulb went on for Jim and I, is like, hey, instead of us working with all these clients and, and they're just going, listen, I don't know, just send me the microphone that you think I should use and the camera, and just, can you just, here's my credit card. Can you buy this for
Yeah,
me
can
on
you just buy it for
Amazon? And
me?
all of that. And I was like, this is not working. So we have to do a show. If we do it on Amazon, we can do it on a large scale, help people.
Yeah.
And what that did is, yeah, more people are starting their podcast because they watch our show and they go, oh, I bought this microphone, this pair of headphones. I'm starting my podcast tomorrow. Awesome. And then there's other people that call us and said, okay, show 47, you guys had Kirk Nugent on. You guys did this. You guys did this. I want that for my show. And then you get hired with
Yeah.
the business that you have. It's just, we treated it like, we're solving people's problems on the platform,
Yeah.
and they trusted us, even though they didn't know who we were. It didn't matter.
Well, I mean, I'm just sitting here like, before we hit record, we were talking about different phases of life, and
Mhm.
you've got kids going out of college. I've got kids coming into my life at the moment. So I remember sitting at a Podfest session that you guys were doing, talking about Amazon Live, and sitting there thinking, like, I needed this for all of the dumb baby things that we needed. Which bottle is going to get my newborn the least amount of gas? Which pacifiers are best to get? I mean, these aren't necessarily like big ticket items, but they're things that I see people talking about in Facebook group forums all the time, of like, which such and such should I get? Which one is
Yep.
best for this? And there's so many different little pockets of life where this is pertinent. It's not just for new parents. It could be for anybody. There's so many different phases where you've got legitimate questions about products and you're like, I don't even know where to start.
Right.
So yeah, I loved that. And I'm still asking all those questions in my mind of like,
Well, yeah,
which diaper is the
so,
best one to buy?
and what's the first thing that pops up is a link to something on Amazon. And,
Mhm.
people go to Amazon to, for it's the number one product search engine. And so why not have those things available in some sort of way, shape, or form on that platform? And it's, instead, that's the funniest thing ever. There's a ton of, Jim and I evangelize for that platform. And there's a ton of influencers that are on YouTube, or like you said, in Facebook groups, and and everybody's asking these questions, but they're asking them in the wrong place.
Mhm.
They're not asking where they can buy them, and so if
Yeah.
you're an influencer, why are you promoting products on YouTube? I mean, I can understand you want to have your stuff there just
Right.
because you need, that is a big search engine, right? And that's just another spot to plant your stuff. But why not be in the mall as
Right.
opposed to down the street spinning a sign? Because you've got lots of chances for that person between the sign and the purchase
Yeah.
that they're lost. Now you just say, here, this is, you're looking for this. I have this. And here's
Right.
how this works with you. Do you have any questions? No? Boom. You're gone, and you get
Mhm.
4% or whatever the commission rate is, and at no cost to the consumer. So why wouldn't you do that?
Right.
That's
Mhm.
the other thing too, is like, that's why affiliate revenue and affiliate commission is so fantastic for influencers and anyone listening. Like, anything and everything that you use in front of you probably has some sort of affiliate program that you
Mhm.
can sign up for, and that is just money that you're just leaving out on the table. That, I can't believe, I'll get a little bump in, every couple of weeks from all of these companies, whether it's Repurpose or Jarvis or, B&H or Shure, or all of these companies, because someone clicked on a link,
Mhm.
and because I solved their problem. So, why
Yeah.
shouldn't I get the money? I've been losing money for years.
Yeah, leaving
So
money on the table. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, even just because not everyone can do the live selling,
right.
that's got to have certain credentials, but Amazon affiliate, you can create affiliate links left and right.
Yep.
And I, it's very interesting. I had a client this past week where I told them, I think you guys need to be setting up you just need to have Amazon affiliate links for some of these ancillary products that you guys are going to be talking about. And they're like, oh, part of our Q2, Q3 plan for next year. Like, we're not ready to set that up. I'm like, you can you set that up
10
ASAP.
minutes. Yep.
Yeah, it's not difficult and it's not anything that's going to be that overwhelming, but it is interesting to see some of the red tape that people feel like
Mm.
when it becomes more than just themselves or personal brand, they feel like it's this way more involved. And I'm like, no, you're leaving money on the table when you
Yep.
could be putting some great recommendations out to people and getting some affiliate income. I mean, I have the same thing. It's my business and my brand is not necessarily focused on recommending products left and right,
Hmm.
but I definitely get those little bumps here and there too of affiliate products or affiliate income from Amazon, places like that, where it's like, I mean, it's just something that I believe in. And if people are going to click on the link, might as well be my link instead of somebody else's or just Amazon's link, might as well
Yeah,
get
you
a
almost
little bit
look
of
at
a
it as a
commission.
service. It's a service. Like
Yeah.
this is the other thing too, is I think when we talk about this is one of the ways, sort of circling back to what you talk about fear of video.
Mm,
I think the mindset that I had and the mindset that I take with affiliate revenue as well is this is helping someone. It's
mm,
not you trying to make money.
yeah.
And I think if the mindset becomes like if you don't do it, you're not helping someone. I think that's when the lights went on for me is by not saying what I want to say, by not working with people to do that and telling people about how to do it, I'm actually not helping people.
Right.
And that when that went on, I was like, well, what if this podcast helps someone get through something?
Right.
I mean, I had I remote produced a show called The Sales Energizer with Dan Jordan, and this woman had this amazing story that she had told, where she never spoke in front of uh, any public office, nothing about her story, about anything. She never shared it. She shared it with a friend, and that friend said, "Tomorrow I'm speaking in this women's group,
Mm,
and I really want you to come and share that story."
mm.
And she was like, absolutely not. Why would I do that? You know, and she said, because I think somebody in that room needs to hear this.
Mm,
And she went and got through her fear of doing it. She was nervous. She threw up. She was just like, she was so nervous to be able to do that. And it's an amazing story. She came to this country and just went through all kinds of terrible atrocities, for her as a human being,
yeah.
and how she powered through it. And she developed this business to help speakers make money. And she told this story. And at the end of it, a woman came up and said, how impactful it was. And she kept on telling her, she couldn't get the words out because she had sort of broken English. And she finally said, please be quiet. And she held up a note, and the note was how she was going to kill herself that day. She had written it out
Mm,
before she went to that meeting, how she was going to kill herself. And she says, I want to live. And it
wow.
was like, when she did that, she said, I impacted that person, and I was so fearful of doing that.
Right.
And so, listen, I'm not saying that, I'm going to save lives every time I go live on Amazon
Right.
with Jim Fuse, but I am saying that maybe something that comes out of that helps someone in some way, and maybe not that moment in that live, but if we keep churning that content out and sprinkle it in the interwebs and on the flywheel of content, and somebody watches it someday on some social media platform and it hasn't even been created yet,
Right.
um, I'd like to be able to do that.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, and the reality is like you're not gonna there might be a lot of people that listen to this and they're like, oh, okay, I might hear one or two things that I maybe have heard before. But usually people walk away with like at least one good thing, like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's gonna stick with me. It's not that every single moment of this interview is going to be life changing for someone, but they're going to walk away with usually at least one nugget of like, okay,
Yeah.
that's something that really resonates with me. I need to remember that, or I need to go take action on that. Um, and the same thing with like, different guests. Somebody might be like taking pages of notes
Yeah.
from one person. And then, the next guest, it's like, okay, well, maybe heard a couple things I like, but whatever,
Well, I hope
but
I wasn't a clunker today, Valerie.
no, but I mean, it's going to be different for each person that's listening,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, of course.
and that's the thing that I love about just this marketing space, folks like you that I've met at conferences and things like that is like, there's such a wealth of great people out there that have so much to bring to the table, and it's going to be helpful for different people compared to
Mm,
others. And, that's one of the biggest things I've learned from going to these different conferences. You might sit in on a session and you're like, okay, well, that's not really it's not really in my line of whatever I'm looking for. But then you go to
right.
the next one and it's like, oh my gosh, this session changed my life.
Mm,
And in our virtual space, regardless of a pandemic going on, people like you and I work with folks from all over the world. Virtually we have that ability. It's like showing up for a different session in a conference each time you turn on a video show or a podcast episode. And, you're going to get some things out of one episode, other things out of others. So, but yeah, that's crazy, that somebody's was so extreme that they were thinking of taking their life and,
yeah.
going to something that changed their life. But, just in less serious terms, like something you say could really like flip the switch for somebody and how they're
Yeah.
approaching their business.
Hmm.
So, and I think when it comes to video and audio content like this, like it is a pretty big platform that a lot of people are just see the comment about affiliate income, like they're leaving stuff on the table by not embracing video and audio and being willing to put themselves out there like that. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate everything you've been sharing.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just a matter of finding simple things. And I love how you framed that whole, hey, if I can just get one little thing out of
Mhm.
this. And that is that's not typically a mindset that I have. I have like, oh my gosh, I am going to try to soak up as much or whatever. And sometimes that works for me, but other times it like maybe my expectations are the wrong way. Maybe I need to go in and just kind of say, hey, if I can just pull one thing out of this and apply it, then I'm going to get, Jim always uses the phrase, I'm going to get 1% better every day.
Yeah.
And at first, when I would hear it, I was like, come on, how about 10% better every day?
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, no, no. Because if you get 1% better every day, after 30 days, you're 30% better, right? And
Right.
and so that it's a mindset thing. Absolutely. It's not, don't look at it as like, I only want to get a little bit better. No, you want to eventually get a lot better. You just can't, what's the phrase? You have to eat an elephant one bite
One
at a
bite at a
time.
time. Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's a fantastic way to approach going to these conferences because they can be overwhelming and you're leaving 10 minutes early to get to another person speaking that started this, and they started 10 minutes earlier. And so you're jumping in late and then you got to jump here and and so that whole thing is overwhelming. But if you go in and you just kind of say, you know what, I'm going to get a little bit better at
Yeah.
the end of this thing. I really love the way that you frame that, and not, to your earlier point. It's like, yeah, we're not saving lives here. We might,
Right.
I mean, why not?
Great
Why not like,
byproduct.
yeah, yeah, sure. Why not? Why not inspire someone that eventually leads to that? And I always feel like, and you have the same, because you have clients, you work for people to
Yeah.
have them look and sound better, right? And that's what I do as well. There's something really rewarding for me, for you to see success in those businesses through other people and know you had a thumbprint on it, that like that person, got this speaking gig or wrote this book because I was involved in some way, shape, or form. Like
Yeah.
I'm in the DNA of
Yeah.
that particular creator, that particular client, that particular customer. That is something that I had done for years in the music business, and that's something that I continue to do. I want to see other people succeed,
Yeah.
and if I focus on that and I focus on those people succeeding, then maybe what I could do ends up succeeding. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I love the way you said that, like just getting into the DNA, because DNA is made up of a lot of tiny little parts. They're
Yes.
powerful, but they're tiny. And yeah, that 1%, it also, with that 1% feels a little less overwhelming than trying to go after a 30% improvement, in one day or in one project. You're like, okay, if I can just make a little bit, the compound effect really is so powerful.
Mm,
Um, yeah, after looking back of like years of doing certain things, you start to reflect back and you can see the impact. It's hard when you're in the middle of it, but that 1% really is powerful. So
mm.
if you were going to help, give anyone some advice today to get to that next 1%, what would you tell them to do?
I'm a recovering perfectionist, and the more and more I talk to people, the more I hear them having some of the same things as me. And somebody's got a fear of video, and they're thinking, well, I got to work at this and I got to work at this, and then they're throwing away a video that they already recorded because it's not good enough, and they're not in, and so they never end up doing
Yeah.
something. And I think that's something that I really, really, really struggled with. And I what hit me was I attended the Global Leadership Summit, and Craig Groeschel, who's a fantastic leader, podcaster,
Hmm.
talked about something that he used. It's an acronym, and it's GETMO, and it stands for Good Enough to Move On.
Mm,
And that's it resonated with me. He talked about, most people think that the longer amount of time that you spend doing something, the more sort of return on that investment would eventually come to you. And that return could be anything. It could be subscribers on YouTube. It could be financial wealth. It could be, whatever you're trying to achieve with
yeah.
whatever you're trying to do. And so he put up an XY axis, right? Sort of the graph. And so he has this, the line goes, the amount of time you spend,
Hmm.
goes, I guess, for those that are listening, the amount of time it goes left to right. And then your return is how it goes up and down. And so the thought is the longer you spend, the more revenue or the more return on that investment. And he says, actually, it works against you. It's just this long sort of flat line where you're doing everything, but your investment is not going anywhere. And so he called it bending the curve. And in order to do that, you really just have to at some point say, you know what? I'm
Yeah.
done with this. This
Mm,
is good enough to move on. I've got to work on the next thing, the next whatever, the next podcast, the next blog post, the next whatever it is, because
yeah.
that next one's going to be better and I'm going to learn from it. And then what I found out is that 4 videos ago, because I was using this Getmo principle, those are the ones that were resonating with people. And I'm like, I was going to spend another 16 hours doing this thing, right?
Yeah.
Why did I do that? I probably
Yeah.
would have never even put out the 5 videos following. So if I were to give anyone some advice, is just Getmo.
Yeah.
Just, get past you know what, there's a zit on my face, there's a piece of broccoli in my teeth, there's whatever. And I think
Yeah.
especially now people are more forgiving. They're going to resonate with that vulnerability, and you're going to end up doing more.
Yeah. Ah, I love that. I like that phrase. I've never heard that acronym used. So I'm really, I've heard it described different ways, but not with that acronym. So I'm glad you shared that today. If people want to get more from you, if they've really been inspired by
They
what
want
you
to get
shared,
Mo.
they want to get more from you. Where can people go find you when they're looking for you online?
I'm at chrisstone.contact. I make it easy. And from there, you can see all my stuff. If you want to watch videos that I do or listen to podcasts that I'm a part of, or connect with me on LinkedIn, or I spend a good bit of time on LinkedIn, connecting with anyone that wants to do that from a business perspective. But if you just want to hang out and watch some videos that I've edited, I'm happy to do that. But you can find all that stuff at chrisstone.contact.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Chris, thanks so much for joining me
Thank you. This has
today.
been
And
awesome.
gosh, I feel like we could talk for hours on some of these
Yeah,
topics, but
let's do it. Let's just keep that podcast player going.
keep it going. Well, sadly, I need to go eat some lunch, but
Okay, okay, okay.
my
Womp, womp,
stomach's rumbling.
womp.
But yeah, I feel like we could talk for hours, and there's just a lot of wealth that you've shared just ever since I've known you that I've learned a lot from. So I'm
Thank you, and
really grateful that you
likewise.
came on today.
Likewise, I'm thrilled to have been a part of it, and I hope this helps someone.
Yeah, well, great. Well, thanks again.
If you liked what you just heard, please hit subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of our future episodes. And while you're at it, go ahead and leave us a review. That not only helps us out, but it helps others discover great interviews just like this one.